I recently came across this article by Suganthan Mohanadasan, great guy in the GEO AEO research space, and I would highly recommend you to read this article. And this article basically talks about his research with regards to ChatGPT results, and he found out that whenever you run a query through ChatGPT, ChatGPT already has a predetermined list of brands that it is going to recommend for the answer. And he ran a bunch of tests and saw that a list of brands were already showing up in the fan out queries. And most of the answers were comprised of the brands that were showing up in the fan out queries. If a brand shows up in the fan out queries section of ChatGPT, its probability of being recommended in the final answer increases by 33 times. So if you are trying to rank your brand in ChatGPT answers, do not rush into checking which articles are being cited or publishing 100 listicles or reaching out to those cited articles and trying to get a placement in those articles. The first step needs to be a detailed research. And by research, you need to run your queries multiple times on ChatGPT, extract all the fan out queries and reasoning data, see which brands are already showing up, see whether your brand or your client is showing up in the fan out queries or not, and see what kind of information ChatGPT is looking for. Over here, we can see that GPT is looking for reviews, awards. I ran this query, best home renovation company, Toronto. So over here, I can see that it's looking and checking whether these brands do full home renovation or not, project scope, credentials, local reputation, etc. And then you can also gather information on what kind of categories show up in the final answer and which brands get cited most of the time. And based on this research, you will figure out where your brand stands, right? So if your brand is nowhere in the shortlisted pool of brands, or if your brand is nowhere in the fan out queries, your first goal will be to get in the training data. And for that, you need to work on publishing your off-page topical map or off-page topical coverage, tell everything about your brand, go in details, and do all the boring stuff, right? You need to establish your entity. It should be clear to the LLMs what you do, how you do your reviews, your case studies, as much detailed coverage that you can create. And then once you get into the training data, or once you start showing up in the pool of brands that appear in fan out queries, that's when you get onto the final leg of the race, and that is to be recommended in the final answer. And we do that by publishing listicle, comparison articles, alternative articles, and also making sure that all the information that ChatGPT is looking for example, over here, looking for awards, it's looking for information whether this company does full home renovation, what's its reputation, pricing, etc. All that should be covered properly on your website, and your website should be easily crawlable by ChatGPT bot, right? So to summarize, make sure you do your research, find out where your brand stands, and based on that, start publishing the content. Straight away publishing hundreds of listicles is not going to help you if you're not even close to being in the training data of ChatGPT. So yeah, go through this article. I'll share the link in the comments section. It's really important if you are in the GEO, AEO space to be updated with how things are changing with LLMs, especially how ChatGPT, Claude, Perplexity, and all other LLMs, how they are processing their answer. Because based on this understanding of how they are processing the results, you will be able to plan your content accordingly, and you won't be wasting your resources, and you'll speed up the process of being recommended by LLMs.